Here with Mike.
Tuesday Talks with Mike and Freddie.
Good morning. I'm going to talk about splash pages today, the proper use of splash pages. We all know what they are. They're the first page of a story in a comic. And for all of us who grew up with comics, we're used to opening the cover and then you see the splash page right in front of you and the story begins. Bam! It's like going in to see a movie and skipping all the ads. However, in recent years, that practice has fallen by the side, especially as graphic novels have grown, because graphic novels are comics with a raised pinky, or as some may say, a very expensive comic book. And since it's more like a book, you often have a frontispiece like this. This is by the brilliant Philbach brothers, one of their Illuminati transport books. The Philbachs used work in black and white. They do not start with a splash page. These are the first 2 pages of the story. As you can see, they're not afraid to use a lot of panels. Over the years, the number of panels per page has changed. It's gotten less and less. I don't know if you remember the old Marvels, but back in the day when Stan was in charge, most Marvel comics were broken up into 9 symmetrical panels. Then later they went down to 8 symmetrical panels. I think Jim Shooter said at one time, I want to see 8 panels per page. So we go through page 1, page 2, page 3, and then you get to the splash page.
Okay.
And this is like watching a movie where it begins with a scene going on and you don't quite know what the scene is going on. I always think of the opening segments of Better Call Saul, which often involve no dialogue at all, but we're all showing, not telling. It was brilliant use of space. And then finally, when it hits the groove, when it gets on track, and you see where the story is going, the credits appear. Then you go through the credits and the story resumes after that. Now I have a friend, his name is Harold German. This is his book. It's about a punisher for animals. It's about a guy who avenges animal abuse. It's an extremely graphic book. It's very well done. It's not for the faint of heart, but Harold is not afraid to start the book on a page that just starts with the story and drags you into the story. But he only does it on 1 page, because then he knows the importance of having the screen go wide screen. You turn the page, and this is what you see.
Wow. Very nice.
It's very tastefully done.
Yes.
With organs flying through the air.
Tastefully. I think that's funny. Tastefully done with organs flying through there. Okay.
Now here's an
Only in
issue
the comic
of
book world.
Jawbreakers by Richard Meyer. And of course, Richard is one of the most successful crowdfunders in history with his comic books.
Yes.
And he signed it.
Aw.
You know, he doesn't start with a splash page, and that's the luxury you have with a graphic novel, which can be anywhere from 48 pages to 148 pages. You have a lot of pages to fill, and they don't all have to be story. And Richard begins more traditionally with rolling the credits before the story begins.
Sure. Good point.
And then finally,
Oh,
a
wow.
legit splash page.
Yeah, that's really well done.
It's action.
Very nice.
It's going somewhere. It's not just sitting there.
Right.
And that's what you want in a splash page. The one thing, well, there are many things you don't want in a splash page, but the main thing you don't want in a splash page is a giant talking head speaking, because you want to draw readers into the story as soon as possible and get them involved with the story so that they care about the characters. And that brings me back to Better Call Saul again. And anybody who's watched that show knows what I'm talking about. How it begins in the middle of an event and advances often for 5 minutes without a word being spoken. And it draws you in. Now, here's one of my prouder efforts, Badger Bedlam.
Okay.
Who was the artist with you? Who was the artist on that one?
This cover art is by, hang on a second.
Okay, well, let's just keep moving along.
Jay Geldof, the great Jay Geldof. Normally I remember all these things, but I forgot to take my Prevagen this morning, so it took me a minute. But Jay Geldof is a brilliant artist. I'd love to work with him again. The interiors are by the great Stephen Butler.
Oh,
Two
yeah.
great Butlers have worked on the Badger. There was Jeff Butler, with whom I created the character, and there's Stephen Butler, who drew many issues.
Are they related?
No, they're not. They're
Oh.
not related at all. It's just like Butlers are drawn to Badger.
Okay.
Anyhow, after this page, and it wasn't my decision to do a page like this, it was First's decision. I have no problem with it. Then you have a drawing of the castle.
Oh, wow.
It's not the traditional castle. It's Stephen's take on the
Kind of
castle.
turn it a little bit. It's kind of the light's reflecting. Okay, good. Nice.
And then you see the splash page, and you'll notice there are 2 panels.
Oh, yeah.
I often favor a 2-panel splash page because it advances the story. And when you see a single image filling up the splash page, you often stop and admire that image, especially if it's static.
Yeah.
You don't want that. You want the reader to eagerly embrace what happens next, which is the most essential question in fiction: what happens next?
Yeah.
Because if the reader doesn't care, he's not going to turn the page. But this is an action picture, and you can see the Badger's rocking that bike. Where's he going? What's going on? Well,
Yeah.
as you read the book,
Oh.
you find out more about it. And incidentally, in this story, Badger's thrown into an insane asylum.
Oh. Okay.
This is from a series I did for Dark Horse. It was illustrated by the great Jill Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
And it
She's
deals
good.
with how Badger became that way. It deals with the root causes of multiple personality disorder, which are very disturbing. And it's a disturbing story. It's not lighthearted like so many of the other Badgers. But
Yeah. I had a friend who had multiple personalities. Wow. Yeah.
it begins with action, and then it carries on the same page. I often do that.
Right.
I like to do it. But traditionally, a comic would open with a full-page splash. And what you have to ask yourself is the splash worth that space? If it's action, if it's well done, it is. And also, if you're showing an intricate drawing of architecture or an ancient civilization, as you see in many Uncle Scrooge comics, that's well worth a full-page splash.
Right.
And again, the one thing that is not worth a full-page splash is a giant head talking. You do not want the reader to get hung up on the first page having to read 500 words. It just stops the story dead in its tracks. Mm-hmm. If you have a lot of dialogue that you want to work in, you got to work it in naturally so that it rises organically out of the personalities and situations in the book. And finally, we have one more. This is Nexus by the great Greg Guler, who lives here in town, believe it or not, here in Fort Collins. Well, he actually lives in Wellington, but
Windsor.
Greg preceded me here to Colorado.
Yes.
And we see 2 panels here. And there is a talking head, but it's an emotional statement. And it's not going to keep you on this page reading and reading and reading. You want to see, what's he upset about? And so you turn the page and the story proceeds.
Right. And Greg is pretty well known for the Disney Phineas and Ferb, but he's done many different types of comic books.
Greg has been laboring in the House of the Mouse now for many years.
Very talented artist. Well, very good. That's lots of great things. So we're planning on doing a writing series, kind of taking you through the steps of, you have an initial idea about writing a story, and then your outline, your rough draft, editing, revisions, and then finally to publishing. So those, hopefully that will be of interest. Do you have anything to say about that series?
Yeah, we've covered this material previously in scattershot fashion.
Right.
But I'm going to try and do it in a more linear series, starting with the genesis of the idea.
Right.
And how you work it up to a point where you're ready to begin the prose novel or the script to the comic itself.
Are you thinking that you want to direct it more towards comic books initially and go through those phases, or novels, or are those similar enough steps?
I'm going to deal with both simultaneously.
Okay, great. Hopefully you're on the newsletter. We just sent one out yesterday, and then we have a Patreon account. So if you are interested, it's just Mike Barron, Patreon. What? And any other thoughts and words of wisdom for the audience?
Well, I've said it before, but it always bears repeating. Always take a hat.
Yes, Mike does wear a hat a lot, even inside the house. We do have heat in the house. So let me see here. We're gonna pan to the dogs. Freddie, you weren't in Daddy's lap today.
Do you want to say something, Freddie?
Do you want to say? Maybe call him over and see if he'll come over to you.
Freddie, come up here. Did I
People
miss
love
anything? Were we on
Freddie.
time?
People love
Did
Freddie.
we hit our notes?
Yes,
Yes.
he's a good dog. All right, well, we're going to end it there. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.